Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Meade.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, well, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here today with you, and we're both in pink. Except you look really cute and put together, and I'm still in my pink gym stuff from this morning.
Well, that's because, what day is it?
Hair wash day.
Hair washing day. It's not always Tuesday, but anyway, so ask me about my weekend.
Oh my gosh, how was your weekend?
Oh my gosh, amazing. And let me tell you why. So we had our little ATL, AF, whatever, what other letters could we throw in there? Little gals.
For the people that are in the United Kingdom, please tell us what ATL is.
ATL is Atlanta.
Thank you.
Or just Atlanta. You don't have to say it, Atlanta. And then
or Atlanta is what Chris always calls it.
Yeah.
Is that our rapping song from like our high school days?
I was going to say that's a throwback, I think, to the 90s, but it's not wrong. It is hot here in Atlanta, especially in the summer. And then, this is a good time to also clarify AF, because I'll never forget when my youth pastor subscribed to my newsletter from my website and I sent something out about something AF, and he wrote me back and he's like, which in all fairness, he's a young guy and like he has to keep me up with the common slang. He's like, you do know what you're saying when you say that, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I do. We mean here, not what how the kids use it. What we mean here is alcohol free. So this was something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and but something that was inspired by a client of mine that lives here, just as an opportunity to connect with people locally in person. Who knew? Like, it sounds so novel. It's not. So Atlanta, alcohol-free girls, whether you're curious about alcohol-free living or you're alcohol-free. And it was very informal. And I found this cute little coffee shop and rented this little room. And we got together Saturday. And as I suspected, an hour and a half was what we were slated for. That was not enough. We went to 2 hours. And then finally, we had to be out of there. And we all could have stayed there for 100 hours. It was so lovely. The nicest women. We had the best time. I got this response from one of the gals who was there who said, I didn't even realize how much I needed to hear me too. And same here from other people in this journey. She's newer to the alcohol-free journey, and she just was really echoing how she knew that was something that would be valuable, and yet here we were in person and she was like, and I underestimated the power of we were vulnerably sharing, just jumping right in, just meaningful connection made right off the bat. And I think that is the beauty of having spaces where we can come together with women who are traveling on similar paths, whether that's that's the alcohol-free space or the alcohol-free journey, freedom from alcohol journey, and or the faith journey. It's the same idea. And it was the perfect kind of punctuation mark for what we've been seeing in our online community, our BJDW community also. It's been a really cool thing. So
that's so great. That's so great. Yeah, and I have just been totally and completely overwhelmed with how quickly the gals in the BJDW in our community have gotten really just active and open and responsive. You and I have started lots of alcohol-free communities, and normally it's as the coach, we've talked about offline, it's a job to stimulate conversation and try to get people connecting. And it's just it has just been so awesome off the jump. Is that a thing to say? Off the bat?
No.
From the jump. I don't know.
That sounds good.
It's been so great. And so, yeah, what has been your favorite part so far of this is just me interviewing you out of thin air and the blue and all that stuff. What's been your favorite part so far, Meade?
My favorite, oh gosh, that's a hard one, because I think like you, I have done I just kind of wanted to emphasize too, I also have done a bunch of like groups and communities, and there is something completely different about this that I'm just like, and of course it is, because it doesn't feel like it's anything that I'm having to effort or make happen. I feel like the Lord put this on our hearts to put together last year and went through different iterations of finally landing on what it was supposed to be. And because we're in that space where it maybe is what God wills for us right now, like it's not hard, like it doesn't have to be manufactured. And so I think the ease at which we're all connecting, it's almost like we've known each other forever. And yet we have new people joining all the time. And they're jumping in, and it's not like we are already all connected. And it's the idea of that kind of like jumping in, and we have these two things in common. And that is an instant connection that I'm just floored by. It's been amazing.
Yeah, so, so good. So, if you gals are not in the community yet, just to let you know, we're having our very first masterclass on Friday, the 15th of March at, it doesn't matter what the time is, 9:30 Eastern. But I'm so excited to be having our good friend Christy Bulwer come and do a masterclass. And she is going to talk about breaking barriers and the 4 things that she has seen that basically hinders breakthrough when it comes to stress and anxiety. And so I think that'll be so good. So that's going to be a presentation with her and a Q&A. And so if you haven't hopped in the community yet, you can do so in the show notes. But we're really, really excited for our first masterclass. This is something we're gonna do monthly, right? Like just have our favorite speakers from either the podcast or maybe not the podcast. This was fun, I think, because this is like directly requested from people, right? Everyone's like, we want more Christy. Not me.
Yeah.
I am not the anxiety expert, you guys, but Christy Bulwer. So that's going to be really, really exciting.
What's been your favorite part of the community?
I think my favorite part of the community has just been that sense of, and you basically already said this, but like there isn't a expectation of solving problems, right? So
yes,
you gals are looking for a coaching community. Like this is not coaching. We just wanted to basically be in community. And so it's that. And then the fact that there's just, that you're all coming from a place of common ground that feels like common ground in a way that other things don't, right? Like
yes,
it's one thing to like be in a room of alcohol-free women and you feel like, oh, this feels good. Like we're all kind of in the same place where we've got the same goal for the evening or whatever it is. But like in this community, it's just like we know we're there for growing closer with each other and growing closer to Jesus. And so that makes it just like so incredibly special. And I think I've been really surprised, as I told you, of how quick it's taken off.
yeah,
I was like, are people gonna come? And they're coming.
yeah. I think something that I underestimate too, even though we talk about it all the time, is the curiosity, that like a place where you can be curious, you can ask questions, and nobody, like you hit the nail on the head. Nobody's here to solve any problems. Nobody's here to give this like guidance like we do in like the coaching groups that we have. And there's a space and a place for that for sure. But like this is like a place where we can just ask questions without needing to find an answer, and other people can share, yeah, I have that question too. And when you can see yourself in somebody else who's like, I mean, I know I have faith, I've grown up this way, and but I have some questions, like how is this? And it's not like, oh, here, hurry, let me try and sell you on why. It's the same thing that we do. I think like when we talk on the pod, it's just we've expanded our circle. The conversation is larger because we get to bring, we get to have a way to have other people a part of it. So that means it's way more interesting conversation too. No offense, Christy. Our conversations are good, but they're way better with the incredible women we have in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So good. Should we
fun.
move on to reader mail?
Should we get to the actual pod?
Reader mail? Anyone?
Yes.
Touch to the reader mail. Okay, let me just pull this up because now I have all these things that you've just sent me in Voxer, and now I have to scroll up. Okay. So here's the question, and there's lots to this. So I'm excited to dive in. Touching on friendships, I'd like specific tips and mindsets that can help us get out of our discomfort, help us show up as our true authentic selves, and attract new, thriving friendships. Addressing the lies, what we perceive other women's lives to be like, and comparing ourselves to that. So basically comparing ourselves to other women. She says, I love what Pastor David said in the Defining Core Values podcast episode. Quote, be friendly to all, but friends with a few, end quote. So good. I feel like in our society, we women define our value and worth by how many friends we have. I love this so much. So when we see all the pictures of women posting tons of pictures with their huge quote unquote tribe, wine in hand, we feel left out. At least I did. There is so much here. So like I kind of broke it down a little bit. Let's start with tips and mindsets that can get us out of our discomfort. And that has to do with like obviously being anxious at showing up. I think it goes into the part 2 of like of showing up as your authentic self. So what do you feel like when we have recently like covered like some of this and another episode, but I still think there's a lot to talk about here. And I think the first one for me, at least, when we're talking about like tips and of how to get out of our own discomfort with other people, is like the first one is obviously it's not obvious because I don't know if we mentioned it that much in the last 2 episodes. We talked about friendship, but like I think is prayer, right?
That's what I had first on my list.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned this so powerfully in one of the episodes.
Did I?
And that you
I can't remember.
Have been and I mean I did at some point too, prayed for relationships, friendships that were like-minded, that were meaningfully connected relationships. I think you can get kind of specific. I know this was one of my prayers at one point. It's like friendships where my friends aren't afraid to tell me the truth, because I think we can have friendships where, friends are, kind of just telling us what we want to hear, but friends that are not afraid to tell us the truth and also pointing us to Jesus, how important that is. And so praying for that is, I said this the other day, not related to this, but to something else. I was like, well, I guess all we can do is pray. And then I was like, wait a minute. I stopped dead in my tracks and I was like, no, what we get to do is pray. What if it's not all we can do? What if it's what we get to do? And in getting to do that, that means that we're having conversation and, intimate connection with the Lord. And so bringing that desire that for friendships to the Lord, gosh, He would love to hear that from us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, do you ever have those like stretches where you're like reading, you're something, there's a message from God and it like keeps turning up over and over and over and over again, like at church in a worship song, and then open your Bible and then and then it just keeps going. You're like, oh God, I got it. But then He keeps telling you because we don't always get it.
Because we don't got it.
Because we actually don't got it. And one of those things for me, like over the last few months too, has been, and I think this ties into like what I can do to show up as my authentic self or discomfort in friendships, but it goes with just like all of the things is like bring God into it and like ask for His help and ask Him to be with you and ask Him to move through the situation with you. And so I think as like, at least for me, I kept asking I kept asking myself, like, how do I trust more? Or how do I do this better? Or how do I whatever? And just that is not the answer, right? It's like bringing God into whatever the situation is, even if it's just not even if that's stupid, but like including friendships, right? Including like if you feel like you're uncomfortable and you're showing up to a new place and you don't know how to show up yourself, like bring God into that. Like He is there with us. Like He is there with us all the time. And He is the one that can give us strength, right? He is the one that can give us grace. His grace is sufficient. And I don't know, that's just been such a big lesson, which is, it sounds so basic, but it's not us. It's not striving. It's not us trying to do stuff. So it's not us that like needs to tick a bunch of boxes off of tips and tools and, and tools are great, but like push comes to shove, like you have the Holy Spirit with you in any situation, including if you're feeling uncomfortable with friends. And did any of that make any sense?
Yes. No, totally. Yeah. So a couple years ago, I wrote about how like it was always it was a me journey, and then I turned it to a we journey. And when I find myself, that's an easy way for me to find find out if if I fall back into, because I was a very self-sufficient, independent, I've got this, it is all up to me. And so my faith journey has taken me, full circle to realizing that actually being dependent on God is a much better and healthier, and I mean, the abundance that comes from that is amazing, but who would have ever thought? But when it was me, or I have to do this, that was for sure a way that made it more stressful, brought more tension to it, because I'm not responsible for that. I could take actions towards that, sure. But just even turning the conversation in my head to okay, God, this is something that I desire. What do you desire for me in finding friendships that are, who do you want me to be with? And there's also a lot of freedom in that, and not feeling like we have to create that.
Yeah. I love that so much. That's so true. It's so true. Because just like everything else, right? Like the friends that we might think that we want, might not be what is best for us. Even
Yeah.
in this season of ditching alcohol and finding new friends, even in this, right? You can get to a place where you're desperate to get into certain groups and things like that. And it's just God's got a plan for all of it. And so bring him into it. Yeah, 100%. And this is making me really pumped for our conversation we're going to have with Sharon,
I
because we both read this book that just, I mean, you found it and I'm so grateful that you did,
devoured it. Yeah.
about just losing ourselves and in the best way. So anyways, I digress. So let's
Yeah.
then talk about
Christy's I'm not
I'm
even opening
all
and letting you have the space for that need, because I know you wanted to jump in and we're going to get off
yeah,
track. So,
I'm all over the shop today. I'm all over the shop. Okay, so second part of the question though, which I feel like is so good, is
well, hold on. I was going to say well, it doesn't matter. But one other thing that I thought of, kind of like tips and tricks, is be the friend that you want, that you wish to find.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Be that friend. So even you were talking about being your authentic self and showing up that way, that's hard to get to that point and have that confidence. It's not impossible, of course. And when we're doing it as a we and not as something I'm doing, then that makes all the difference in the world. But when we can kind of think about, I was coaching someone not too long ago, and it was what she was noticing in someone else as a potential good friend turns out were things that make her she sees these things as good in someone else. And I'm like, well, tell me about you what are you like as a friend? And turns out she's showing up as the friend that she actually wants, to find.
yeah,
And I think that's a way to, when we are focused on the we, and then we're showing up from that place of how, what kind of friend do I want? And I'm being that friend. I hate to say that's what we attract back, because that sounds all new
yeah.
age, manifest, whatever, which is not what I mean at all. But that's what the Lord will bring us, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to just move into, is exactly what you just said, of how do we show up as our authentic selves. And I think that if you're brand new to the alcohol-free space, we're still learning who we are, right? I mean, that never stops ever, but
Well, yeah.
and so I think that never stops ever. But this is the thing, learning who you are, what you enjoy, what you want to spend, how you want to spend your time, and then, living into that so that you can attract the people that'll be potential good friends for you. I think that also, then when you figure out what you like, is put yourself in the situations of where that you feel good, right? At church, at a Pilates class, whatever it is, be in those places. But this is the thing too. It's if you've been hanging out I was at bars and pubs and dinners and fancy things of late night dinners and cocktails and all that stuff. Those are no longer where I'm going to meet new people that I want to spend time with. I'm going to meet them probably in other places, which brings us into just being really intentional then about how we spend our time. And for me, I think it's really helped my friendships that I am the planner. I mean, I'm sure that's a big shock to you, but I make the plans so that the plans can be brunches and lunches and walks and massages and stuff like that, because I don't want it to leave a chance that someone is going to book an 8:30 dinner because that's too late.
Oh, yeah. No, that is not even dinner. That's just bedtime upright at a table with food in front of you. No, yeah, exactly. You can look for other places. I mean, we've talked before about like kind of thinking about the things that we like to do before alcohol took up so much space in our lives. So even if it means going way back to like the social things that we did, which I think about like I mean, that was before being a teenager almost, because pretty much from my teen years on, anything social, right, did have alcohol as a part of it to lesser or more degrees at different times. But thinking about those things that we could do instead that you once enjoyed and going to those places, and not like, and like just it's being open to who you might connect with there in a way. Like maybe that's not where I think that I'm going to find a new, but you never, I mean, you never know. And staying open to that too
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Responding to the heartfelt requests from you, our wonderful, wonderful listeners, for a deeper sense of community, we are so excited to introduce y'all to the But Jesus Drink Wine community.
Get ready to be part of an exclusive experience where you'll join a sisterhood of kindred spirits on a transformative journey of faith, sobriety, and personal growth.
You'll gain access to our private community, a place where deep connections can flourish among women who share your aspirations of strengthening faith in Christ and breaking free from alcohol.
But wait, there's more. We'll host regular connection calls to facilitate fellowship with like-minded gals, no matter where you stand on your alcohol or faith journey. Whether you're seasoned or just curious, you are very warmly welcomed here.
Prepare to be inspired by guest expert sessions and engaging Q&As that explore the essential topics for your sobriety, faith, and holistic wellness journey.
Don't miss out on securing your spot. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
We can't wait to see your beautiful face in the But Jesus Drank Wine community.
I also think practice makes perfect, just like anything else. And so if it's a double whammy of like you've given up alcohol and you're trying something new, that can be really scary. And it's one of those things where the confidence comes with doing the thing. Of course, this feels scary if it's brand new, if you're trying to like make friends and you're newly alcohol free and you don't even know who you feel like you are yet. Like this is all just learning, but it's like you always say, it's what we get to do, right?
It's what we get to do. I also think I can think about in my journey over the last 5 years how there really did come a time where I almost, and I've talked about this before, but like not withdrawal, but I had to kind of step back from the social world so much. And I think the Lord, I can look back and think for sure that the Lord was trying to break me of whatever dependence I might have had on, or whatever worse I was getting from having a huge social circle and having plans and being invited to all the things. I can look back now and see it. Now, at the time, there was like a 6-month span where it was just like really just challenging because I'm like, gosh, maybe it is, maybe there aren't people out there for me that I'm going to connect. And I have my few people, but what that did is it allowed me, once I settled into that, it allowed me to really be sure, that my desire for friendships was a godly desire and not I'm trying to fill something that, I would have in the past, or trying to be validated or my worth. Because I mean, the reader asked the question, talks about social media as that. I also, side note, every time we get a reader mail, which thank you so much for your reader mail, but every time we get one and it talks about social, like there's some kind of, we see this on this, I immediately go to like, or you could just stay off social media and then you don't see what people are doing. And it really doesn't bother you because you don't know what you don't know. That I want to go there too. But I get why it's not for everybody to just jump off social media. But that is playing into it. If you're having those like comparison thoughts, well, how do those comparison thoughts come to you? From seeing things to compare with, and maybe that's something to go, like, is this serving me? Did I getting on social media and seeing everybody going to all these wine tastings or wine country or whatever, did I get off of social media feeling better about my journey or a lot worse? And maybe your answer is in that, but I
Yeah.
digress on that.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you and see your point. I also think though that this idea, this story that like a big tribe is better and a big tribe and a
Yeah.
massive tribe and group of friends is better is beyond social media. I think that this messaging comes from a lot of different angles. And I remember like first moving to London, like, and London is a very like clicky society. You literally like, climb the social ladder vibes and get invited to the right parties and be members at the right clubs and all that stuff. And I fell for that stuff so freaking hardcore, babe, when I first moved over here. Like, I was friends with all the ladies of London from the Bravo show and like wanted to be cast on the show with them and all this stuff. And I was just like sitting, at London Fashion Week with them and all of this stuff that I was just like, yes, and I wanna be in there, and now I'm just like, "Oh my gosh," like, all of those friendships were so not authentic, right? Like, how it was just all for show, and it was all for the pictures, and it was all for the status, and it was all for all the things, and so now it's just like there is a very, very small group of women that are my people. You are one of them. Wink, wink.
Oh,
And and so and how many people can you be your true 100% authentic self with, right? Like how many can you really? And how many can you actually fit into your schedule then of like of all that, right? Because it takes a lot to be a really good friend. You know? I'm just on a roll here.
that's
So I'm going to keep going. So I have a really good friend
go,
who
go.
is studying for a like a qualification, and even though I'm book editing and podcasting and doing all the things with you and all the coaching and stuff, I was like, I should offer to read her thesis, her work, whatever that she's doing. And I wouldn't have, and I do that because I love her, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the time nor the capacity to do that for 20 people,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So please take me off my soapbox and
No, I
say
love
something
it.
better.
That's where I was going too, is that like really it always takes me back to like the quality over quantity kind of
Yeah.
idea. And for people who are like reformed people pleasers who would say yes to everything, it's like, okay, if we're saying yes to all the social things and we're saying yes to having all the friends and all of, then what are we saying no to? Because our capacity is limited, our time is limited, our schedules are limited, our capacity is limited. And so we can have 100 surface level, friendships, or we can be really intentional, which is what we always come back to too, because it's so true. We can be intentional about where we're spending our time and who we're spending our time with. And like I can say for like my journey, that 6-month period of time where I was like, okay, maybe I'm just, never going to have like a social circle again. What I learned is that I don't have capacity to do all of that. And if I want to go deeper, it means fewer. And so
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny because I feel like the line that always gets thrown out about this is, well, Jesus only had 12 and it's supposed to make it sound like it's such a small number. Right now, that feels like a really big number. That feels like tribe level, but it is. It's true for Jesus and what he was doing. 12 is a very small. And he had his inner within, inner boys.
Well, yeah, he
In
had his
his 12. Yeah.
12, then he
Yeah.
had his 3, then he had his
Yeah.
1,
Yeah.
right? Like the
Yeah.
level of,
Yeah.
depths and time spent. I think that was, yeah, so powerful and me learning too over the past few years is, yeah, I can't, there's a reason. If we're following Jesus, we're looking to him for cues for how to do everything. And the way he does friendship, I mean, right there. I guess we don't even have to say anything more about that, right? Like this is a wrap on that. I'm just kidding.
Are you actually did you find your clock? Is that why you're saying that?
No, I did. I still haven't found the clock. Okay. But I mean, that's what it comes back to, and reminding ourselves that it does take time. And it's okay that it's slow, but that's where our discomfort kicks in because we want it and we want it fast. But maybe why is it taking time? Like, what is the Lord trying to
Yeah.
do with us in the meantime? I mean, we can't rush that. we can't if we tried. I mean, we may want to, but kind of surrendering
Yeah.
to his timing on that is important too.
Yeah. It's so, so true. When you said that, I just think about our sweet, like, teenage girls, right? And, like, just how they are desperate to be accepted and they're desperate to make friends and they're desperate to have people like them and be in the right circles. And it's like, here we are, 40-something-year-old women talking about the same things that our 13, 14, 15-year-old girls are struggling with, right? And it never
Yeah.
leaves us. But the good news is that we have truth about it. We have truth about it, and we get to have Jesus, so, like, with us and driving the car. I was gonna say along for the ride, driving the car and driving the train, and yeah, there's just so much hope, and I just think this is gosh, I hate the word journey, but here we go. It's a journey.
I know. There's no other word.
There
Can we
is no other word.
make up a
There's
new
no other
one?
word.
Like, no, but
I
like
don't know.
one that's never been said
Yeah,
before. We could just
we
make
should
up one, put some sounds together. Is
yeah,
that how it
let's do
works?
that. Yes, let's do it. What's your tiny Tina?
Oh, speaking of putting
So
things
why are you
together.
so mad at Tina today?
Oh no, I'm just like, oh, I feel this in the reader question, the desire for friendships and the like that longing and how I just remember it so great. I mean, I still have it. And to your point, we still have it. But for a tiny Tina, I I don't know. I mean, I always come back to like being curious, but that's the mindset. So like when we're looking at like mindset, the mindset to have or the tips and the tricks, like that is the mindset. It's just to be kind of curious about it. So the fact that you're even asking the question is fantastic.
Like, basically becoming aware of this, right? Like, and the awareness is the first step, and I think that's a really powerful step, right? Because we're not supposed to do everything alone. Like, the Bible, that's another one that, like, I was just gonna say God's been browbeating me with, but that's wrong. But, like, just it keeps coming up over and over again, right? Is like, do it in community, like, better together, like, all of that stuff that we're not supposed to do this alone. This is why he created the church. And so it's a good thing. It's a good thing to
Yes.
want community, especially if you're turning from, a group of friends and you only had friends that were like hardcore drinkers and maybe didn't know Jesus and didn't hold your values. And so you've done like a total 180. Like, this is part of that, but it's just the awareness of it is good. Like, you're not supposed to be doing this journey alone. You're not. This is why the BJDW community, like, is exploding because everyone's looking for this. So hashtag you're not alone.
Yeah, because growth is never comfortable. Like when we're growing, like you cannot grow in comfort. So if you're comfortable
Yeah.
with,
Yeah. Yeah.
where your
Yeah.
friendships are, you're maybe you're not, I don't know, growing. So like thinking about it from the standpoint of starting this adventure, this journey, this is something I get to do. I get to be super. So maybe it's just a simple reframe of like, I get to be really intentional about where I'm, where I'm giving myself and where I'm, potentially have that opportunity to be fed because I think that's the beauty of friendships, meaningful relationships is there's a give and take that's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there was a whole conversation about vulnerability that we just totally and completely drove by and we didn't even like look at him. But maybe we should leave that for another day because when we're talking about like showing up as our authentic selves, like it's so about that, right? Just
Yeah.
the
Well, yeah.
openness, vulnerability, and all of that stuff. Yeah.
It's really hard to be vulnerable. But I mean, I always go back to Dr. Kurt Thompson and what he says. Like, we don't do vulnerable. We are created vulnerable. It's just we and our humanness come along and take all of, you know, put on all of these masks and have all of these coping mechanisms for the discomfort that comes along with being vulnerable. And so it's not our paying attention to like what that looks like. I mean, I wasn't vulnerable. I thought I was vulnerable after, sharing a bottle with a girlfriend and several glasses. I thought that was vulnerability, but I
Yeah.
didn't really understand that is not the same as vulnerability. Like being loose-lipped and no inhibitions is not the same as
Yeah.
vulnerability.
Woo! I
And
like it. Say it again.
I hope I can. Being loose-lipped and lowered inhibitions is not the same as being vulnerable. And
Yeah.
vulnerable is, you cannot be connected to somebody without vulnerability. You
Yeah.
can't. Like, you cannot have meaningful connect. It is, vulnerability is the bridge to being connected to other humans. And we're created to be connected to other humans. We're created to be in community to other humans. So the desire for the friendships is so good. It's just making sure that we're paying attention to that desire and allowing God to steer the ship. You said car and train. I'm saying ship.
Okay.
Let
I
God
like it.
steer the ship.
Let him steer the ship. Yes, I love that. I love that so much. And that's, again, going back, we're just full circle moment here. Like, if you don't know how to do that because you've never done it before, because when you said the thing about loose lips and lower inhibitions and like that hit home for me so hard because that's what I thought vulnerability was until I
Yes.
got alcohol free and practiced doing real vulnerable things, which took a lot of time and practice, And so, yeah.
That was just, yeah, that was a ruse. That was a like fake way of keeping people at a safe arm's distance. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I must have this knowing that you have to be vulnerable in order to connect to people. But as long as that was the medium for doing so, all it was
Mhm.
doing was keeping my arm up and people at a safe distance. I mean, I was, I guess, very unconsciously afraid for people to know the real me. But there has not been, of all of the things that have been hard or uncomfortable in these last 5 years, I mean, name the area of our lives that like has been since fighting freedom from alcohol. There's not one single second, not one single day, not one single hour, not one single minute, not one single second that I have thought, man, I wonder if things were better the other way. Not one time,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they weren't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah.
that's encouraging, but
Yeah. I feel like we could just keep going on this forever and ever because the thing with, I think, also being vulnerable when we were drinking, right, is we were also, I mean, I don't know about you, but like I definitely was like getting honest about struggles and stuff, but not in a way where it wasn't about still holding to some perfect ideal, right? Like there was still a mask of I've got it all together and everything's going to be great and
mhm,
everything's fine. And I think that that's another the beautiful thing about this community and about being vulnerable with someone who loves Jesus and is alcohol free is you get to connect about your true self and all the faults and all the flaws and all of that stuff that comes with it. And that is what then ends up contributing to true connection, And that again,
absolutely.
I'm just keep saying the same thing over and over again, right? That takes practice
Mhm.
and yeah, and we're not perfect at it.
It's okay. Yeah. The exchange of vulnerability and the trust that, like, when I can share from the depths of my heart now with my close friends, and the trust that is there now that I wouldn't have had, like, I know that they're gonna give me something. It may not be what I want to hear. A lot of times it is, maybe. And a lot of times there's no, I mean, it's just like encouragement, but there's a trust that comes with that that allows it to work both ways. And we always do this where we go, okay, like what's the tiny Tina? And then we like say something and then we say 6 more things. Okay, fine. I do. I won't throw you into that. I won't take you down with me. But as we talk it through, that I always like land on the one thing that I'm like, there it is. What I see so glaringly is like, what do you consider vulnerability? Like, how would you define, so taking one little tiny action today, write out the definition of vulnerability? Like, what are the
Love it.
characteristics of vulnerability? What would it have to have for you to be able to say, I was vulnerable, therefore I was meaningfully connecting with somebody in this exchange? These are the things that it would have to have in order, and these are the things, and this is what it's not. So taking pen to paper and really kind of sussing that out would be would be what I would recommend, because I think that we can have an idea of what vulnerability is. We can know it's a good thing. It's all buzzwordy now and these, whatever. But until we kind of like get really clear on what we think it is and see if that's true, maybe that's where we can break down some more of those limiting beliefs or the stories we're telling ourselves about why wine is, the stories we tell ourselves that wine is the thing that is helping me with friendships.
Or any of the things we talked about, that lots of people are the key, or that,
Yep.
I love it. So good.
Yes. So good.
So good. So true.
So true.
So good.
So
I
good.
was holding that mug the other day that I sent you that I have. So you guys, I sent Meade a mug that says so true, and Chris made me one that says so good. And I was drinking coffee out of it the other day, and my client's like, "That's a really big mug," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." I don't know why.
And
we had to end with the coffee mug story. Okay,
it's so
thank
cute.
you for being here. See you next Monday. You're the best. Come join us in the community. Links in the show notes. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com, and make sure you follow us over on the gram at Love Life Sober with Christy and Meade at I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites at meethollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle to find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you. We'll see you next week.